Hello.
Hello.
1 minute, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, just 1 minute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I am able to hear.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome, Ajit.
Very good afternoon to all of you. To this 12th session of South Asian Online Literary Conference being conducted by Sahitya Akademi in collaboration with Foundation of SAARC Writers and Literature, FOSWAL. And before I start this program, kindly forgive me for delay start due to some technical issues. We could not start on time. And in this session, we have three conversations. Mr. Dev Prakash in conversation with Dr. Ajit Kaur from India. And the second one, Mr. Rifat Nunim in conversation with Professor Khaisar Haq and from Bangladesh. And the third one, Mr. Shyamal Bhattacharya, India, in conversation with Santana Ayathurai from Sri Lanka. Now, before I start the program, may I request all the participants to kindly cooperate with me to organize this session, and keeping the mind that please confine to only 10 minutes time, because we have lost almost 5 minutes.
No, it is 15 minutes. 15.
In fact, ma'am, it is 15 minutes only, but we have already lost around 5 minutes time for technical issue.
You can prolong this session.
Okay, right. Fine, that's fine. So, may I request Mr. Dev Prakash to start the proceedings. Kindly introduce yourself and kindly introduce the Dr. Ajit Kaurji to the viewers.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I'm unable to see your video. Can you start the video? Yeah, now I'm able to. Yes, sir. Kindly start.
Welcome, Ajit ma'am. I am Dev Prakash Chaudhary. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kindly start the process.
Okay. I want to know that you wrote a lot, read a lot. What are you writing or reading these days?
Because of my eyes, I am hardly reading or writing much, but something or the other goes on all the time. Because as a writer, I cannot help writing. Writing is not only my passion, it is my necessity. That is how I live. I live by writing.
Okay. Which writers of SAARC countries influence you? Whose writing do you like and want to read again and again?
Now, there are many from SAARC countries. In fact, when I started working with SAARC, first of all, I invited writers from Pakistan. And the writers were Nizar Hussain, Ahmad Faraz, Fakhr Zaman, Mohammad Manshayad, Afzal Nawa, and so on. So I love all of them. And from Nepal, it is Professor Abi Zubendi, Mr. Operati, Keshav Singhal, and many others. I love them all. From Sri Lanka, it is Kanchana.
Okay.
Kanchana, Dayadasa Naike, and many others, many. I love all of them because I keep inviting them. There's no particular from Bangladesh, Kasara, whom you will just see on the screen. After our conversation, his conversation is scheduled. Kasara, Manzoorul Islam, we met him this morning. Selina Hussain, my dearest friend who has written 37 novels, Muhammad Nurul Haq, Muhammad Nurul Huda,
Yeah.
the great poet of Bangladesh, and many others. I love all of them. And then Bhutan, Kundan Jordan Broder is one of the senior most writers of Bhutan. And Rinzin is a very intelligent, intellectual boy. Sonam Kinga is there, and many others. From Nepal, I have told you. Bhutan, I have told you. Sri Lanka. From Afghanistan, Gula Gayamati, Manalai, Abdul Ghafoor Liwal, Pastor Naderi,
Okay.
and many others. Azad, who is the advisor to the president of Afghanistan. Only he could get the link because he was speaking from the president's office. No, hardly any other writer from Afghanistan would get the links right. I don't know what is wrong. I am in love with all of them.
Yeah. You have been organizing the SAARC festival for a long time. People want to know that how does such an event benefit your creation process?
I can explain it by giving you two examples.
Yeah.
One is both are from Afghanistan, actually. We organized a SAARC conference in Lahore and Islamabad, and we had to walk through Wagah border
Okay.
and reach the other side. And from the other side, we were to take coaches to reach our hotel in Lahore. Wagah is about 22 kilometers away from Lahore. So I had told my friends, please don't take the trouble of coming to Wagah. We will meet in the hotel. But no, as we crossed Wagah, there were about 5,000 people waiting for me with the drums and bands and all the media and television cameras, and they were so enthusiastic. It took us 2 hours to hug each other and to kiss each other, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
After we got into our coaches and proceeded for Lahore, we got a phone call from the immigration department. They said, in all your emotional outbursts, we also got emotional and we forgot to stamp your passports. I said, we cannot come, we are very tired, we cannot come back. You come to our hotel to stamp our passport. So the immigration people came to our hotel in Lahore to stamp our passports. Can it happen in any other country with any other people than the people of India and Pakistan? The second instance is also from Pakistan. in Islamabad, I got a phone call from one of the senior most journalists, Hamid Mir. He said, I want to interview you. I said, you will hang me upside down after cutting me my throat because you are very cruel in your interviews. And I will bring my friend Manoj Shyam Joshi with me. So, and call two other writers from Pakistan also. So let it
Joshi.
a talk
Yeah.
among four people. So Manoj Shyam Joshi, you know, the writer of Hum Log, the first serial which was shown on television.
Yeah.
So we went there and I said, my condition is you won't ask me anything about Kashmir. He said, okay. So for 1 hour we had talks. What is the use? What is the advantage of holding such conferences and all that? And at the end of it, he said, what do you think of Kashmir? I said, Kashmir is Bahish. It is heaven on earth. And it is there for all of us to enjoy. Then Mumbai, the writer from Pakistan, he said, अरे यार पहले तुम अपने पाकिस्तान वाले कश्मीर को जन्नत बना लो. Make your own part of Kashmir a piece of heaven. Only then we will talk about the Kashmir which is with India, and that we will decide among ourselves. Ajit Kaur and I will sit across the table and we will decide what to do with it. Isn't it marvelous? That is what happens when hearts unite and they beat together in the one rhythm.
Okay. And one question from Punjabi word.
Pardon?
Punjabi literature, whose works do you want to read again and again?
I couldn't understand.
Punjabi, who do you want to read again and again?
Again and again.
Yeah.
I want to read Gurbani again and again. That is the best piece of literature we have. Right from Guru Nanak to all the Sikh Gurus and the Bhakti saints and Sheikh Farid, who was the first Punjabi poet, even 300 years before Nanak. And that is the best literature we have. I want to read it again and again. And there are many, many, many others whom I want to read again and again.
Okay. And
Mr. Dev Prakash Chaudhary ji, will you be able to conclude in 2 minutes?
Yeah, one question, please.
Please.
People want to know about her first story, and why did she choose the story mode? She can write poem also. One question, only 2 minutes. Okay.
My first story was written when I was 16, and it was an inter-college competition where I read it. And after reading it, trembling all over, shaking my whole being, I read the story. And after I went behind the curtain, I got a piece of paper saying the story was marvelous. Can I have it, please? And I will publish it in Namia Kiva, which was the most popular, one of the most popular literary magazines. And it was signed as Ram Singh. Ram Singh was a great philosopher and scholar. And that is how my publishing started. I had never to approach any publisher.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
So thank you so much, Mr. Dev Prakash Chaudhary ji and Dr. Ajit Kaur. Now, may I request Mr. Rifat Munim to start the conversation with Professor Kaiser Haq. And I also request Mr. Rifat ji to kindly introduce yourself and introduce Professor Kaiser Haq ji to the viewers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we're all hard pressed for time here, so
yeah,
I'd cut to the chase. My name is Rifat Munim. Currently, I'm working as the literary editor of Dhaka Tribune, an English daily based in Dhaka. I also write fiction and also translate from Bengali to English. And I actually grew up reading the poetry of Kaiser Haq through the years. And Kaiser Haq is Bangladesh's biggest English language poet. He's also a fantastic translator. He translates from Bengali to English. He has translated poetry and also fiction. And he's also a very good essayist. So I think now I should move on to the interview. Otherwise, I have so many questions. If you read Kaiser Haq's poetry from his first collection, then in an interview like this, you will have a lot of questions. But I think I won't be able to ask as many as I had planned. So I'd be very terse, and I'd ask just a few questions. So my first questions would be, Kaiser Haq, your poetry has evolved into many different strains over the past 50 years. So I'd like to begin with how it all began in your first collection, Starting Lines, which was published in 1978. Your expressions were terse, and the verses were technically perfect. So how did you achieve these feats in your first collection in a country where writing in English was not the fashion? Was there any kind of schooling or formal training that helped you hone your skills?
Well, I wouldn't quite agree with the judgment that the poems are all perfect. I think they're quite, imperfect, a beginner's work. But I have retained some of them in my collected poems. And I'm also thinking of rewriting the others, with which I'm not very happy. But you see, when I was growing up, I had no idea that I would write poetry. See, I think the turning point came when I was in class 10, and we had a wonderful teacher called Brother Hobart. Now, before this, I mean, my education had been entirely in the English medium, so from kindergarten onward. So I felt that it was not unnatural that I should choose English as my literary language. And Brother Hobart really introduced me to the pleasures of poetry. He had a wonderful teaching style. And then we had one of the poems in our syllabus was D.H. Lawrence's Snake. So that made me aware of the potentialities of free verse and supple rhythms, clear imagery, and I started scribbling. So I think the earliest poem of mine that I have retained in my collected poems was written when I was 18. And I used to stroll in the park in the evenings, smoking. I couldn't smoke at home, so I'd go to the park, smoke, and stroll, and just think about things, the world, and so the technical aspect. Well, I started reading poetry widely, in anthologies. I think that's a very common experience with all writers, poets, I'm sure. At first you want to see what others have done, and one shouldn't set limits to one's reading. One should read whatever one finds and think about it. So gradually one learns to read critically and to learn, from the work of others, So the technique evolves. It's not something that one can learn like a skill.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now I'll move on to the next question. In your second collection, A Little Edo, I think it was in your second collection that we first witnessed streaks of satire, wit, and irony, which was evident in all the subsequent collections, and which you took to greater heights in your collected poems title published in the streets of Dhaka. So, would you care to comment on this aspect? This aspect from the second collection to your collected poems, it has grown. It has grown bigger to incorporate not only local issues but also issues that are common to any reader of English poetry, like especially with reference to Ode on the Lungi and East West, because these are poems that readers find themselves breaking out in roaring laughter while reading. So, how do you? Yes.
Well, I mean, I think that serious modern writing is never separable from humor. I mean, the greatest modern writers also have a lot of humor in their works. And then satire. Satire and poetry have always gone together. You have lyric poetry, which is the expression of powerful and subtle emotions, and satire, exemplifies the most social aspect of poetry, whereas the lyrical aspect is personal. The satiric sort of poetry has to do with the role of the poet as a social animal, because satire is always aimed at society and as a whole, and that human nature, the foibles and little flaws in human nature are sort of highlighted in an amusing way. So, and I find a lot of pleasure in satiric writing, and so do the readers, I believe.
Yes, in fact, while reading your poems, like as I mentioned earlier, East and West and Ode on the Lungi, I'd request everyone present on this panel to read these poems, because they will entertain everybody. My next question is, when you one of the questions that you face regularly is that your poetry is rooted in Dhaka. In your poetry, Dhaka comes alive. Dhaka in all its aspects. Dhaka with all its squalor and all of that. But you also refer to, even before you stretch further back, to Hindu rulers and all. So would you please elaborate on this aspect just a little?
Well, rootedness, I think it comes naturally. One of the poets whom I admired a lot was Nissim Ezekiel, and he was rooted in Bombay. See? And he also played with Indian English, and he wrote 8 poems in Indian English. I've written, now, the thing is, any poet will derive his imagery, his or her imagery, from the milieu that he's familiar with. And so the cityscape, where the streets in which I grew up, with streets that I traversed on a regular basis, these have been bombarding my senses with imagery of various sorts, and they naturally find their way into my poetry. Now, I mean, think of Baudelaire. I mean, Baudelaire cannot be separated from Paris. Nissim Ezekiel can't be separated from Bombay. For early modernists in Bangla, the 5 great modernists, they can't be separated from Calcutta. you know. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, but then quite a large number of your poems also transcend the boundaries of geographical location, and they talk about people and places in a way that they become South Asian, or maybe beyond South Asia, it becomes global. So
Well, I think,
a little something about that.
yeah, quite right. Well, I mean, this is a platitude almost to say that, you know, even if you can write about the local things that are really significant, you will achieve universality. The universal is not something uh, transcendental, you know, something like a Platonic world of ideas. The universal is you know, present in the immediate experiences that you have. You know, it is the significance that you derive from your immediate experiences that is universal. Right? So even if let's say someone is writing about Liverpool, the so-called Liverpool poets, for example, of the 1960s, they appeal to everybody, and you know, they influence people even in Dhaka. So, or the Beat Generation. Think of the Beat Generation in San Francisco and, you know, the American milieu. But their influence also traveled, and we found universal significance in their work. Okay.
Do I have time for one more question?
I'll be very grateful if you can complete in 1 minute.
Yes.
So that
I think we can do that. Kaiser Haq, my last question is: we as readers have always found you responding to the demand of time, like whenever there was an urgent social or political crisis, you responded to it through your poetry. Like in 2003, Humayun Azad, a Bengali language writer, was attacked. Though he survived, but he died in a year, and he was brutally attacked. And then you wrote a poem, A to Z, and the last line of that poem was, "The poetry is in the protest." This has become a legendary line for us, young poetry lovers. Anyway, so it says a lot about your belief on poetry. So would you please just
Well, I
comment
mean, this
briefly on
is
that?
only one aspect. I think. At times, you know, the poet has to address, you know, public events which have a tremendous emotional impact. But I wouldn't describe myself as a protest poet, you know. So this is, it depends on circumstances when something, you know, really sort of hits you and you feel that you have got to say something. I find that a poem is perhaps the best way of doing it. Say, in How Many Buddhas Can They Destroy, for example. You see, when the Buddhist monasteries were, you know, vandalized, I sort of wrote that poem. I felt that, you know, I had to respond to that event, that unfortunate event. But I'm not sort of constantly on the lookout for social themes or, you know, topics on which I can express something in protest. I'm not in that sense a protest poet. So,
thank you so much,
thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And
Mr. Rafat Munim and Professor Kaiser Haq.
thank you very much.
Now we shall move to the Syamal Bhattacharya as conversation with Mr. Santan Ayathurai from Sri Lanka. So I request you to kindly start the proceeding.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes.
Good morning, namaskar. Mr. Ayathurai Santan writes in English and his mother tongue Tamil, and got 3 award-winning novels and 3 collections of stories and a collection of poems in English and about 25 books in Tamil, including fiction, travelogues, and translations. He won the Sri Lankan State Literary Award twice, once in English and once in Tamil, besides Fairway Award, Godrej Award, and several other reputed recognitions. His works have found places in many anthologies in India and Sri Lanka, in English and in Tamil, and were translated into Sinhala, Russian, Hindi, and Bangla. The highest Sri Lankan state literary award, the Sahitya Ratna, has been bestowed on him in 2019, and the most prestigious Premchand Fellowship of the Sahitya Akademi of India, the recognition for a creative writer for the SAARC countries other than India, was given in the year 2017. Santhan, an engineer turned writer, lives in Jaffna, Sri Lanka. Welcome, Mr. Santhan.
Thank you, Mr. Bhattacharya. Hope that you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Good
Yes,
afternoon,
sir.
everybody.
I want you to read your stories now.
Yes. And namaskar. It's a pleasure meeting you all here this afternoon. And as Mr. Bhattacharya said, I will straight away move on to reading my story. It's a very, very short one. It's a flash fiction. It's titled In Their Own Worlds. He caught sight of it as he was closing the compound gate. An earthworm, well fed during the last month's rain and fat. It had managed to the surface somehow or the other, now wriggling. If it had encountered any ants or birds, Ravi shuddered and felt sorry for the worm. As he bent to toss it away with a stick to a safer place, the idea struck him suddenly. It would make a wonderful plaything for his nephew. Ravi went again into the house and returned with a sheet of paper. He took the worm, carefully placed it on the paper, folded it gently, and put it into the bicycle basket. When he reached his sister's place, he called out to his nephew, "Come and see what I have for you." Kunju came running on his small feet and couldn't control his amusement when he looked into the parcel. "Amma, uncle has brought a small snake," he shouted excitedly to his mother and repeated it to his grandmother too. "No, dear, it's not a small snake, it's an earthworm," said Ravi. Granny came there and looked into the parcel. "Your uncle is such a carefree man that he has time to play with worms," she told Kunju, blaming her son. Kunju's mother came there and told her brother, "Thambi, the brother-in-law who left for Vavaniya last Monday promised to return yesterday and hasn't come yet. Could you please go to his mother's house and find out if there's any news?" Her eyes brimmed with tears. "He will be back today, don't worry," he tried to console her. Yesterday's paper spoke of some trouble in Vavaniya the day before. Uncle, the earthworm is going to fall. Wait here and have a look." Ravi told his nephew and went to the storeroom. Fetching an empty jam jar, he washed and filled it with earth from the backyard. "What is it for, uncle?" Kunju asked when he returned with the bottle. "For the earthworm to live." "Where does it live?" "In the earth." "Then how did you catch this?" "When it came out." "Why did it come out?" "Maybe because of the rains," Ravi said, and put the worm into the bottle. "Look, it will bow its way in." "How? Has it got any legs or hands?" "It will bow with its head." "Wouldn't the earth get into its eyes then?" "It doesn't have any eyes." Kunju, unable to believe the things his uncle told him, kept the bottle and swatted by its side. Sister came again. "In case you are going, better start before sun is up," she said. "Yes." "If he hasn't returned yet, ask if they have received any message from him." "Uncle, it's boring." "Wait, have a cup of tea and go," said sister. "Hurrah, it's going, uncle." "Don't disturb the bottle." While ringing the tea, Kunju asked him, "Uncle, how does it cry?" "It doesn't cry." "What does it eat?" "The earth. Look how deep it has gone. More than half its length." Ravi told them he was off and started towards his brother-in-law's mother's place. When pushing the bicycle out, the thud of a motorcycle was heard at the gate. It was the brother-in-law himself. Sister too must have heard the noise and came out running. "Why? Was there any trouble? Why were you late?" She blurted out the questions, her face gleaming. "Appa," Kunju too shouted at his father, who was getting down from his motorbike, "the earthworm has gone in completely." So that was the story. Mr. Bharacharya. Hello? Your mic is
Kindly,
muted.
Bhattacharya, please unmute your audio first. Please unmute your audio.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. From the
Yeah,
story,
fine.
I feel your sensitivity towards the environment, towards the flora and fauna. But there is an inherent tension lie when we came to know that the brother-in-law of the small boy did not return from outstation. And the story ends when he comes back and the earthworm enters the mud filled jar completely. Did you use this coincidence simply or as a symbol?
No, that was a natural way
Mr.
to end the
Santhan.
story. Yes, can you hear me? Can't you?
Yeah.
So that was a natural way to end the story. And both the father of the boy and the earthworm return to the safety of their respective environments. The earthworm becomes a symbol of the characters in the story, all are engrossed in their own lives and thoughts.
Okay, so you are known as the father of flash fiction in Tamil. Some critics say that you have taken that unknowingly. But what I find that you have taken this form 4 decades ago, when there was no such form anywhere under the sky. Can you clarify, please?
First of all, I must admit that I am very lazy and also short of time to write copiously. Secondly, it may be due to the nature or the influence of my profession, which would have trained my way of thinking to seek the optimum benefits with the minimum of the economy.
Okay, being an engineer by profession, what prompted you to start writing?
Actually, it's the other way around. I was a writer even before my entering the College of Technology for the studies of engineering.
So you are a bilingual writer, Tamil and English. How do you select the language?
Language, in my opinion, is just a vehicle. The ideas and feelings are the ones that matter. At times, I feel like putting down my ideas in Tamil and at some other times in English. The selection mostly depends on the theme. For example, I do not see any need to write a story based on the hardships of war or the agonies of war in Tamil because the readers themselves would have experienced and read enough about the recent war.
Okay, so every journey ends. It's your noble name, if my understanding is correct, is the longest of your works. You take pains to narrate the torn between nature of the characters. Reading through some passages, I can see the patience with which you have built up the tension in the characters. Tell us something about your own experience in creating the characters.
As you said, the Every Journey Ends was the longest of my novels. Writing a novel is a time-consuming effort and needs a lot of patience, as you all know. It is also a pleasure. It's also pleasurable when you add one simple word, befitting word after the other, and see the story grows. But if you know your story, your characters, and the theme and the tone, then there will be no problem. So it will grow by itself. Only thing, the author has to do justice to his characters and his readers as well. That's all.
So literary critics are parroting about various isms in writing. Do you think writers need a label for their writing genres?
No, actually, in my opinion, genres are meant for the writings. And the writings are not meant for genres. The writer has to write what is coming to his mind. And it's the dividing them into different genres is a matter of for the critics and the teachers of literature. How are we going to divide a good short story from a poem? Or how are we going to line up demarcation from a short story and a novella, or a novella and a novel? These are things left for the analysts to dissect and find out. But as a creative writer, I feel whatever comes to my mind, I have to put it in writing. To say it briefly, the literature is not meant for genres or the isms, and the isms are meant for the literature. We have to write for the people, for them to understand. That is my humble opinion.
So apart from all the big literary awards from Sri Lanka, you are a recipient of Munshi Premchand Fellowship in 2019. How was your visit to India?
Yes, that was an honor for any writer from the SAARC region. And I was really very happy to receive it. I not only received the fellowship that year, but also had the privilege to attend the annual literary function of the Akademi as the guest of honor. The visits arranged by the Akademi after that to all the major cities of India were very rewarding and memorable. I am always grateful to the Sahitya Akademi for all this. I am always grateful. I must mention also that I have written a small book on my return in Tamil, elaborating all these experiences and feelings of my visit to India.
Okay, so I think our time is up. So from our side, we must thank Ms. Ajit Kaur and the SAARC, this FOSWAL and Sahitya Akademi for arranging such a fantastic discussions, poetry reading, prose reading, etc. for SAARC countries, writers. It is a great opportunity. Thank you very much. Thank you all viewers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shyamal Bhattacharya and Mr. Shantanu Ayathurai from Sri Lanka. And on behalf of Dr. K. Srinivas Rao, Secretary, Sahitya Akademi, I sincerely thank all the participants right from the first session from Mr. Dev Prakash Chowdhury in his conversation with Dr. Ajit Kaur, and followed by Mr. Rifat Munim's conversation with Professor Kaisar Haq from Bangladesh, and the last one, Mr. Shyamal Bhattacharya's conversation with Mr. Shantanu Ayathurai from Sri Lanka. So I sincerely thank once again all of you for participating in this session, and thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.